You know that weird silence right before something terrible happens? That's exactly what I felt when the screen froze on my son's wedding live stream. Lydia mid-scream, someone knocking over champagne glasses, and Mark, my son, standing frozen like he'd seen a ghost. I remember whispering, "Please tell me this is buffering." It wasn't. The chaos was real. And if you think watching your only child's wedding on a laptop screen is tragic, try watching it implode before your eyes. Before we go further, I should probably warn you. This story isn't just drama. It's the kind of heartbreak that seeps into your bones. And honestly, the hours it's taken to piece this together, to relive every humiliating detail, it's a lot. So if you want to support me while I pull the curtain back on this train wreck, hit subscribe. It costs nothing, but trust me, the emotional labor costs plenty. My name's Caroline Brooks, and I've lived in Charleston, South Carolina, my whole life. I'm 53, a high school English teacher by day, a wine philosopher by night, and a mother who always believed she'd raised a good man. My son, Mark, was my world. His father, Rick, walked out when he was 10. No warning, no goodbye note, just an empty closet and a memory of him fixing the old Chevy in our driveway. I remember sitting on the porch with Mark that night, holding his little hand and promising we'll be fine. We'll always have each other. And we did. For years, it was just us against the world. Movie nights with burnt popcorn, Sunday pancakes, inside jokes that no one else got. We were more like best friends than mother and son. Then came Lydia. Lydia Monroe. Polished, charming, the kind of woman who could make you feel 2 inches tall with just a smile. The first time I met her, she reached out her manicured hand and said, "It's so nice to finally meet you, Mrs. Brooks." Her voice was sugar, but her eyes? Steel. I didn't think much of it at first. She was beautiful, confident, ambitious, exactly the kind of woman who could sweep a man like Mark off his feet. But slowly, things began to shift. Our weekly phone calls turned into quick check-ins. "Hey, Mom, can't talk long. Lydia's got a client dinner." Weekend visits? Replaced by texts that said, "We'll come by soon, promise." And when they did come by, Lydia would glance around my cozy little Charleston home like she was appraising a thrift store. "Oh, that's such a rustic tablecloth," she once said, her voice dripping with condescension. I smiled through it, because that's what mothers do when their sons are in love. We tolerate. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. It was a Thursday night. I was grading essays when Mark called. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice uncertain. So, Lydia and I are getting married." I dropped my pen. "Oh, sweetheart. That's wonderful. When's the wedding?" There was a pause, too long. "Next month. But it's going to be really small. Just family. Well, mostly her family. But you can watch online. We're live streaming it." I laughed out loud. "That's funny, Mark. Now, where are we doing it? Church or beach?" He didn't laugh. "Mom, I'm serious. Lydia thought it'd be best this way. Less stress for everyone. Less stress. For her." I felt the air leave my lungs. My only child was getting married, and I was being told to watch it like a YouTube premiere. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "Of course, honey. Whatever makes you happy." I could hear Lydia's faint voice in the background, and Mark's tone dropped to a whisper. "Mom, please don't take it personally. It's just complicated. Complicated. That word again. The same one Rick used the night he left." So on the day of the wedding, I put on my favorite blue dress, the one Mark always said made me look fancy, curled my hair, and sat in front of my laptop. I smiled at the screen as the ceremony began. The venue was a vineyard in Napa Valley, all blush tones and white roses, the kind of place that practically screamed money. Lydia looked like a model in her gown. Mark looked handsome but off. There was something in his eyes. Then it happened. A crash. A scream. Glass shattering. Someone yelled something I couldn't make out. The camera shook violently, then froze. Lydia's mouth opened mid-scream. Mark's face pale. The image froze there, mocking me. I stared at that frozen frame for what felt like hours. The chat filled with panicked comments. What happened? Is everyone okay? Did someone just fall? But there were no answers. The screen never came back. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch, replaying every moment. I refreshed the live stream page again and again, but the image stayed frozen, like some cruel snapshot in time. The next morning, I checked Lydia's social media. Every wedding post had vanished. Mark's account? Silent. Not even a thank you for watching. That's when the teacher in me kicked in. When something doesn't add up, you dig until it does. I started searching. The venue, the vendors, the planner, anything I could trace back to that wedding. A tagged photo on Instagram led me to the event coordinator, and a quick Venmo search showed the payment came from Mark's account, not Lydia's. Odd, considering she was the one with the family money. Then, while scrolling through Reddit one night, I found a post on r/wedding disasters titled, "Bride Loses It After Shocking Revelation During Vows." The details matched almost perfectly: a vineyard in Napa, a groom who froze mid-ceremony, a bride who screamed before chaos broke out. The post didn't use names, but it described the bride's initials as LM. My heart started racing. I clicked, and there it was. The bride found out the groom's mother had sent something to the officiant minutes before the ceremony. A letter that changed everything. A letter? I hadn't sent anything, but someone clearly wanted people to think I did. My fingers trembled on the mouse. I reread it 3 times, every word sinking like a stone in my stomach. Someone was framing me. For what exactly, I didn't know yet. But I wasn't going to sit quietly and let them drag my name through the mud. If Lydia thought I was just some harmless Southern mom with good manners and a Pinterest addiction, she was about to find out that I could play the long game. Because I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a woman with nothing left to lose, and that's the most dangerous kind there is. If you were in my shoes, watching your child's wedding implode live on camera, would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have started digging too? Let me know in the comments. The morning after the livestream disaster, I woke up to 43 unread messages and a pounding headache that felt like karma doing jumping jacks on my skull. My cousin Jill had texted, "OMG, Caroline, what happened?" Followed by about a dozen question marks. My colleague Mrs. Hensley, who still thinks Facebook is the internet, had left a voicemail asking if Mark was still alive. Even my neighbor, Tom, who only talks to me when my azaleas cross into his yard, had dropped a note on my porch that said, "Saw something about your son's wedding online. You okay?" The world knew something had gone wrong, and apparently they thought I had something to do with it. I spent that entire Saturday glued to my laptop, digging deeper. The Reddit post about the mystery letter had exploded overnight. Hundreds of comments speculating about what was in it. Some claimed it was a confession. Others said it was proof the groom had cheated. One said it exposed a family secret. But one comment caught my eye. It read, the letter was handwritten, delivered to the officiant by a woman claiming to be the groom's mother. That was the moment my blood turned cold. Someone had gone to that wedding pretending to be me. I know I shouldn't have, but I immediately called Mark. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I tried again, and again. On the 4th call, the line picked up. But it wasn't my son. "Caroline," Lydia's voice said, sharp as glass. "Lydia, what the hell happened at that wedding?" I saw. "You've done enough," she interrupted. "You couldn't even let us have one day of peace, could you?" "Excuse me." I shot back. "I didn't even go. You didn't invite me, remember?" There was a pause, and then a cruel little laugh. "Then why?" she said slowly. "Did you send that letter?" "What letter?" She scoffed. "Don't play dumb. You had it delivered right before the ceremony. You ruined everything. Mark is humiliated." I felt my jaw tighten. "I didn't send anything, Lydia. You know me better than that." "Oh, believe me. I thought I did," she said. But apparently I was wrong. And with that, she hung up. I sat there staring at the phone, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The audacity. Not only had this woman cut me out of the wedding, but now she was blaming me for something I didn't even do. For 2 days, I tried reaching Mark again, but he was a ghost. No texts, no calls, nothing. I started to wonder if Lydia had him completely under her thumb. She always had that effect. She could twist a situation until everyone else looked like the villain, and she came out looking like the saint. By Monday, I'd had enough. I took a personal day from work, drove downtown to my favorite cafe, Elliot's on Meeting Street, and opened my laptop. If Lydia wanted to play games, she'd pick the wrong English teacher to mess with. I started by tracking the Reddit post. The original poster had deleted their account, but the username, Wedding Throwaway 89, left digital fingerprints. Using a little tech trick my students taught me, let's just say you learn things teaching teenagers in the internet age. I cross-referenced timestamps and image metadata. Within an hour, I found that the same user had commented on a wedding planning forum months earlier asking for advice on dealing with a difficult mother-in-law. The user mentioned Charleston, South Carolina, and, get this, a fiancé named M. So yeah, Lydia. She'd been planting seeds for months, setting me up as the villain long before that letter ever appeared. That realization hit me like a slap. The narrative was already written. Caroline, the meddling, jealous mom who couldn't let go of her baby boy. It wasn't just a story, it was a campaign. She turned me into a character. I was furious, yes, but there was something else under that anger, clarity. If Lydia wanted war, I could fight clean, or I could fight smart. And I'd always told my students, never pick a fight with someone who edits essays for a living. We notice things. So I started noticing. I scrolled through Lydia's Instagram again. But this time, I looked at the details, the flower arrangements, the decorations, even the catering company tagged in the rehearsal dinner photo. I called that catering company pretending to be a freelance event writer. It wasn't a total lie. I'd written articles for the local paper once. The woman on the phone was more than happy to gossip. Oh, that wedding, she said. Crazy night. We didn't even get to serve dessert. Someone delivered a letter right before the vows, and the bride just lost it. Do you remember who delivered it? I asked. Some lady. Brown hair, floral dress, about 50. She said she was the groom's mother. I gripped the phone tighter. Did she leave a name? No, sorry. But she had an accent. Midwest, maybe. I hung up, my mind racing. Midwest. I'd never even been farther than Tennessee. Whoever this imposter was, she'd gone to a lot of trouble to make me look guilty. That night, I poured myself a glass of Merlot, sat on my porch swing, and stared at the Charleston sunset. The air smelled like salt and jasmine. I kept thinking about that letter, the chaos, Lydia's voice dripping with blame. And somewhere between one sip and the next, a slow, cold resolve settled in my chest. I wasn't going to clear my name by begging for forgiveness. I was going to do it by proving exactly what Lydia had done and making her regret ever underestimating me. The first step was simple: find that letter. I started with the officiant. Every wedding has one, and Napa Valley wasn't short on them. After an hour of sleuthing through the vineyard's tagged photos, I found him, Reverend Simon Hawthorne. I sent him a polite email. Hello, Reverend. I believe we have a mutual connection. I'm Mark Brooks' mother. I'm hoping to clarify something about a recent ceremony. No response that night. But by morning, there was a reply. Mrs. Brooks, I was advised not to discuss the events of that day. I hope you understand. However, for what it's worth, I am sorry for how things unfolded. Advised not to discuss, meaning someone had told him to keep quiet. Lydia again. I closed the laptop slowly, my pulse steady. If Lydia thought I was going to let her gaslight me into silence, she clearly forgot that teachers deal with entitled, manipulative liars for a living, and most of them are 16. I'd had practice. That night, I started drafting a list. People to contact, clues to verify, questions to answer. I titled the page Operation Clean Slate because if I was going to do this, I might as well give it a dramatic name. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. Outside, the cicadas buzzed, and inside, my laptop screen glowed with the first spark of revenge. I knew I couldn't confront Lydia directly, not yet. But I could start tightening the circle around her. A quiet email here, a casual inquiry there. I'd find that fake letter, trace it, and when I finally had the truth, I'd deliver it to the one person she couldn't manipulate anymore. My son. Because Mark might not be listening now, but he would. And when he did, Lydia would wish that live stream had stayed frozen forever. By the end of that week, I was running on caffeine, spite, and the sheer adrenaline that comes from realizing you've been played. My coworkers at the high school started giving me those cautious looks. You know, the kind people give when they can tell something's off but don't want to ask. I'd stop chatting in the teacher's lounge. Every free minute, I was at my desk, laptop open, piecing together the puzzle of Lydia Monroe. Or rather, Lydia, whoever she really was. I'd learned one thing early in my life. People who look too perfect are always hiding a crack somewhere. You just have to press hard enough to find it. And Lydia's porcelain life? I was ready to start tapping. It began with her social media. I'd already scrolled through her curated posts 100 times. Flawless photos, soft filters, #blessed captions, and a fiancé who always looked slightly uncomfortable. But what caught my eye wasn't what she posted, it was what she didn't. There were no family photos, no old friends tagging her, no school reunions or hometown visits. For a woman who loved attention, she'd done a suspiciously good job of erasing her past. So I dug deeper. I started with what I knew. She'd gone to college in Chicago. Or at least, that's what she told me the first time we met. I typed Lydia Monroe University of Chicago alumni into Google and hit search. Nothing. No alumni lists, no LinkedIn connections, nothing. So I tried every variation of her name I could think of. Lydia Marie Monroe, L. Monroe, L.M. Rhodes, her supposed mother's maiden name. Finally, buried on page 6 of search results, I found a tiny article from a 2012 community paper in Peoria, Illinois. It mentioned a Lydia M. Monroe involved in a small-town theater production. The accompanying photo made my heart race. It was her, younger with darker hair, but definitely her. The caption listed her as Lydia Monroe Hastings. Hastings? That was new. I started cross-referencing. Hastings wasn't a common name in Peoria. Within an hour, I found a local bankruptcy filing from 2014. Frank and Marjorie Hastings, with a dependent named Lydia M. Hastings, filed under financial fraud. Bingo. So, Miss Polished Lydia from Napa Valley wasn't born into money after all. She was born into debt. And if my instincts were right, she'd been clawing her way out ever since, by reinventing herself one lie at a time. I leaned back in my chair, smiling for the first time in days. I wasn't sure yet how this would help me prove the wedding sabotage, but knowing Lydia's shiny life was built on a lie. Oh, that was delicious. Still, I needed proof. Something concrete I could hold in my hand. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called in a favor. There's this retired cop named Harold Jenkins who volunteers at the high school. He's a grumpy, coffee-stained old man with a soft spot for his former students. And lucky for me, he'd once been one of mine. I brought him homemade muffins and told him, "Harold, I need to find out who forged a letter with my name on it." He raised an eyebrow. "You get yourself in some kind of Hallmark mystery, Caroline?" "Something like that," I said. He chuckled but took me seriously. "All right, give me what you've got." I slid him a printout of the Reddit post and the officiant's vague email. He scanned it, frowned, and said if someone forged a letter, they had to get your handwriting somehow. "You ever send this Lydia girl anything written?" I thought for a moment, then it hit me. A Christmas card. 2 years ago. A little note inside about how happy I was that she made Mark smile. My neat cursive. Black ink on cream stationery. I groaned. "She's got my handwriting." Harold whistled low. Classic con job. But if she, or whoever, actually sent a physical letter, there'll be fingerprints or postal records. I can poke around, but it might take time. "Time's fine," I said. "Patience is something I have in abundance." He grinned. "That's what scares me." Over the next few days, I played it cool. At work, I taught Shakespeare's Othello and talked about jealousy, deceit, and manipulation while secretly thinking, "Girl, you have no idea." My students had no clue that while they analyzed betrayal in verse, I was living it in real time. Then one afternoon, as I was sipping coffee at my desk, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. anonymousinbox88@protonmail.com. The subject line read, "You're not crazy." My stomach twisted. I clicked. Inside was a single sentence. Check the Monroe Family Trust in Sacramento County records. No signature. No attachments. Just that. Now, I'm not one to fall for anonymous tips, but something about it felt too specific to ignore. I went to the Sacramento County Clerk's online database and typed in Monroe Trust. Within seconds, up popped a public record, Monroe Family Revocable Trust, terminated as of 2018. The reason? Fraudulent asset declaration. Lydia's family wasn't just broke. They were exposed. That's when I realized how deep this went. Lydia hadn't married my son for love. She'd married him for access, reputation, stability. Mark, with his steady engineering job in Atlanta, his spotless credit, his good heart, he was her ticket back into respectability. And I was the inconvenient reminder that she didn't come from the world she pretended to. No, wonder she wanted me out of the picture. That night, I called Harold again. I think I know her angle, I said. She's building a new identity, one clean enough to hide her family's mess. That fake letter wasn't about humiliating me. It was about controlling the story before it controlled her. Harold exhaled. So what's your move now? I smiled, the kind of smile that used to make Mark groan because he knew I was about to stir trouble. If she wants to play storyteller, I'm going to give her a plot twist. Because here's the thing about being a teacher. You learn how to make people expose themselves. You ask the right questions. You set the right scene. You let them think they're winning until they talk too much. So I crafted an email. Simple, polite, just enough bait to make her bite. Hi, Lydia. I wanted to reach out since we haven't spoken since the wedding. I'd like to make things right between us. Maybe we could talk privately? There's something important I found about the letter. I reread it, then hit send. 10 minutes later, 3 little dots appeared on my screen. Typing, stopping, typing again. Then her reply came through. Caroline, I don't think that's a good idea. There's been enough damage. Let's just move on. I smiled to myself. That hesitation, that fear, it told me everything I needed to know. Lydia wasn't worried about moving on. She was worried about what I'd found. And that, my dear, was confirmation. By the end of that week, I had the first threads of her lies, a retired cop on my side, and the beginnings of a plan forming in my head. But before I could pull my next move, Harold called with a tone that made my stomach drop. Caroline, he said quietly, you might want to sit down. I found something about that letter. And that's when the Rayal story started. When Harold told me to sit down, I thought he was being dramatic. The man once called in a code red over a broken vending machine, so forgive me for not expecting much. But the tone of his voice this time, it had weight. The kind that makes your stomach drop before you even know why. I'm sitting, I said, trying to sound casual even though my heart was tap dancing against my ribs. He sighed, that long, gravelly exhale only retired cops and disappointed fathers can pull off. Caroline, the letter? The one that supposedly blew up the wedding. I think I found it. I stood up immediately. Where? Fax copy came through a paralegal friend of mine out in California. Apparently, the officiant turned it over to local authorities when the venue started filing insurance claims for all the damages from that day. Guess your fake twin made quite the scene. Insurance claims? I repeated. What kind of damages are we talking about? Glassware, chairs, cake, a chandelier. Someone even kicked a soundboard worth 10 grand. It was mayhem. I didn't say anything for a full 10 seconds. I just stared out my kitchen window at the Charleston marshes, golden light fading over the water. Then I whispered, send me the letter. He did. When I opened the scanned PDF, my breath caught in my throat. The handwriting was mine. Every loop, every slant, every flourish on the Y. It was identical to the notes I'd written in Christmas cards my whole life. But the words? They were mine. Mark, I'm sorry I never told you the truth about Lydia. She isn't who she says she is. I paid her to leave you once, but she came back for your money. You'll regret this if you go through with it. She's lying to you, like her family always has. Don't make my mistakes. Mom. I sat back, clutching the edge of the counter. My pulse roared in my ears. Whoever forged that letter hadn't just mimicked me. They knew what would hurt most. I would never have written something so cruel. But the part that froze my blood was the phrasing. I paid her to leave you once. That was specific. Too specific. Because that exact sentence had come up only once in my life, and only one person had ever heard me say it. Mark. It was years ago, back when he was in college. He dated a girl named Paige, who treated him like dirt. After one too many nights of watching him cry over her, I'd lost my temper and said, if I could pay that girl to leave you alone, I would. It was a joke, a mother's frustration, but apparently someone had remembered it. My knees felt weak. Harold, I whispered, whoever wrote this knows me, knows Mark, knows everything. He was quiet for a beat. You sure it wasn't someone close to Lydia? She's got motive. Yes, but how would she get that line right? That was private. I said it years ago in my house, just the two of us. Harold hummed thoughtfully. Then, maybe she wasn't the only one listening. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. After we hung up, I poured myself another glass of wine. Cheap Merlot this time, not because it tasted good, but because I needed something to hold. I sat down at my old pine table, the one Mark had carved his initials into when he was 12, and stared at the printed letter. The more I looked, the worse it felt. There was something personal about it. The choice of words, the cadence, it read like someone trying to write me, but getting the tone slightly wrong. Like a ghostwriter with an agenda. And then the detail that made my skin crawl. At the bottom, just under my forged signature, was a faint watermark. Brooks and Monroe Events. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Then it clicked. Lydia had mentioned once, back when she still pretended to like me, that she'd started a small lifestyle business with her cousin in California. Something about weddings, PR, and brand partnerships. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But seeing that watermark there, it was proof. That letter had come from her printer. I called Harold immediately. She did it, I said breathlessly. Lydia printed it herself. Her company's watermark is on the paper. He grunted. Careful, Caroline. That's circumstantial. Not for long. I spent the next 2 days crafting the perfect trap. I knew Lydia well enough to know she couldn't resist the last word. She was the kind of woman who'd rather die than let someone think she wasn't in control. So I baited her. I emailed her again. Lydia, I know about the letter. You should have come to me before doing something that stupid. Less than 5 minutes later, her response came through. Caroline, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't write that letter. But here's the thing about liars, they overdefend. So I wrote back, funny, because your company's watermark is on it. The reply came almost instantly. That's impossible. My printer hasn't worked in weeks. Someone's setting me up. I grinned. She just admitted 2 things. That she owned a printer with that watermark and that she panicked fast. Still, her defensiveness nagged at me. What if she wasn't the one who forged it? What if someone else used her equipment? Someone who had access to both of us, me and Lydia? The thought hit me like a punch. Mark. He'd spent time at my house over Christmas, helping me fix my Wi-Fi printer. He'd also spent weekends at Lydia's before the wedding, helping her with her business paperwork. He had access to both homes, both printers, both worlds. But no, my son wouldn't frame his own mother. He might have been distant, but he wasn't cruel. Right? I didn't want to believe it. But the pieces were starting to fit too neatly. Maybe Lydia hadn't written that letter at all. Maybe she'd just taken the blame for something she hadn't planned. Maybe Mark had. I stared at his name on my phone for a long time before finally pressing call. Straight to voicemail again. I left a message this time. My voice was calm, but my heart was racing. Mark, it's Mom. We need to talk. It's important. Please don't shut me out anymore. After hanging up, I sat there in the quiet, thinking about that last line from the fake letter, don't make my mistakes. Whoever wrote that knew exactly how to twist a knife. The next morning, Harold called again. You're not going to believe this, he said. The officiant's assistant came forward. Said the woman who delivered the letter looked a lot like you, but younger. Younger. My throat went dry. What do you mean, younger? She said she thought it was your sister or your daughter. I don't have a daughter. Then who the hell was it? That was the question echoing in my mind all night as I sat awake, staring at old photo albums. Until, somewhere between one glass of wine and another, my eyes landed on a picture from years ago. Mark's high school graduation. There she was, standing at the edge of the photo. Blonde hair, sharp smile. Lydia's cousin, Brooke. The cousin Lydia had once casually mentioned, the one who helped out with her company. And suddenly it all made sense. The letter, the signature, the delivery. Lydia might have set the stage, but Brooke was the one who played the part. Now all I had to do was prove it. Because if Lydia thought her family could forge my name, destroy my relationship with my son, and walk away clean, she was about to learn what happens when a Southern mother stops turning the other cheek. And this time, I wasn't just cleaning my name. I was burning theirs. You ever hit that point where anger stops burning and starts cooling into something sharp? That's where I was ice calm, steady, and quietly dangerous. After Harold confirmed what I already suspected, that Lydia's cousin Brooke was the one who'd actually delivered that forged letter, I didn't yell, cry, or storm off. I just smiled, the kind of tight-lipped smile Southern women reserve for funerals and backhanded compliments. Because where Lydia and her cousin came from, confrontation was chaos. But where I came from, we called it accountability, and I was about to serve it hot. See, revenge doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's a slow pour, like sweet tea. Takes time to steep, but once it's ready, it's unforgettable. My first step was getting Brooke to admit what she'd done. But to do that, I needed bait. Something irresistible. So, I created a fake opportunity. I used an old Gmail account from my freelance writing days and drafted an email titled Partnership Opportunity, Southern Elegance Weddings Feature. I told her I was compiling a blog piece about rising event planners in California and wanted to highlight Brooks and Monroe events. I threw in some flowery compliments. Your brand aesthetic exudes charm. Your work radiates authenticity. I even attached a fake logo for a made-up lifestyle site, the Southern News. It took exactly 42 minutes for Brooke to reply. Oh my goodness, we'd love to be featured. What kind of questions will you need answered? Perfect. I sent her a short list, keeping it casual, where the company was founded, notable events, client experiences, and my favorite question, can you share a story about a time your company overcame an unexpected challenge during a wedding? I hit send, sat back, and waited. The next morning, her reply came in at 5:48 a.m., early enough to tell me she was excited but nervous. I skimmed through her over-polished answers about luxury experiences and client satisfaction until I hit paragraph 3. That's where she slipped. She wrote, one time, during a wedding in Napa, a last-minute situation required us to discreetly deliver a private note to the officiant. It was intense, but we handled it with professionalism and grace. I nearly dropped my coffee. Professionalism and grace. That was her way of describing the chaos that ruined my son's wedding and smeared my name across the internet. I grinned. Thank you, Brooke, I whispered to myself. You just confessed in writing. I forwarded the email to Harold, who let out a low whistle when he read it. You sure you want to play this long game, Caroline? This could blow up. Oh, I'm counting on it, I said. Because here's the thing. When people like Lydia and Brooke build their lives on appearances, reputation is their currency. You don't destroy them by screaming. You destroy them by exposure. And I was about to expose them in the one place they cared most about, the internet. I crafted a new Reddit post under a throwaway account, u/Southern Mama Burns Back. The title? My son's wedding was ruined by a forged letter. Guess who really wrote it? I laid out every fact, every screenshot, every detail I'd collected so far. I included Brooke's email with her company name clearly visible and the watermark from the forged letter. I didn't accuse anyone directly. Just let the receipts do the talking. Within hours, the post blew up. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments, people dissecting the timeline, calling out the Lydia and Brooke PR scam. The internet loves a mystery with receipts, and I'd given them a feast. By that afternoon, Brooks and Monroe events had gone private on all social platforms. Their business listing on Google flooded with one-star reviews. My phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. DMs asking if I was the real mom from the wedding story. It was chaos, but this time it was mine. Around 8 p.m., my phone rang. Lydia. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker while sipping wine. Caroline, her voice trembled, all the honey drained out. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop. You're ruining people's lives. Brooke's having a breakdown. Mark's furious. This isn't you. Oh, but it was. I texted her one sentence in reply. Then maybe you shouldn't have forged a mother's love into a weapon. She didn't answer. The next morning, I checked my email. One new message from Mark. Subject, Mom, please stop. I didn't open it right away. My hands were shaking. When I finally clicked, it was short, just a few lines. Mom, I don't know what to believe anymore. Lydia says you're making things worse. Brooke's denying everything. I just want it all to stop. Please don't post anything else. Let me handle it. I stared at the screen for a long time. He was scared, confused, but he was also reaching out, and that was something. For the first time since this all began, I felt the tiniest flicker of hope. Still, I couldn't stop yet. Not until I knew he saw the truth with his own eyes. That evening, I sent him one final email. Not emotional, not angry, just facts. Screenshots, dates, timestamps. Brooke's confession. Lydia's denials. The forged letter. No accusations, no pleas. Just truth. And then I wrote one last line. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life, Mark. I'm trying to take mine back. I hit send, closed my laptop, and exhaled. For the first time in months, I felt lighter. And maybe it was the wine talking, but I smiled thinking about all the people reading my story online. How strangers were piecing together what my own son couldn't yet see. If you've made it this far into this saga, if you've been sipping your coffee, shaking your head, and thinking, Lord, this woman's been through it, then do me a favor. Subscribe, share, comment, whatever helps keep this story alive. Because every word I write is time I'll never get back. But if it helps one person spot their own Lydia before it's too late, it's worth every sleepless night. That night, I went to bed earlier than usual. I dreamt of my son as a boy again, laughing, eyes bright, trusting. And when I woke up, the first thing I saw was a new message from him. It said, simply, Mom, I need to see you. Alone. And just like that, I knew. Things were finally starting to turn. If your own child started believing a stranger over you, would you fight to prove your truth or walk away for peace? Let me know in the comments. When my doorbell rang that Sunday morning, I knew it was him. There's a way your heart recognizes your child before your eyes do. The sound of his footsteps on my porch, the pause before he knocked, it was all so achingly familiar that my breath caught before I could move. I opened the door to find Mark standing there, shoulders slumped, face pale, holding 2 paper cups from the coffee shop down the street. The same place we used to go every Saturday morning before life turned into this mess. He looked older than his 30 years, like the chaos had carved something out of him. Hi, Mom, he said softly. Hi, sweetheart. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he handed me the cup. Caramel latte. Extra foam. Still your favorite. My voice caught in my throat. Always. We sat in the living room, the silence heavy but not hostile. He looked around at the familiar walls, the old photos, the space he used to call home. There was a flicker of recognition there, maybe even guilt. I read your email, he said finally. All of it. I nodded, gripping my cup so tightly my knuckles went white. And he sighed, rubbing his temples. It's a lot. Lydia swears she had nothing to do with that letter. She says Brooke handled all the stationery for the wedding. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe the proof, Mark. I pulled out the folder I'd set on the coffee table before he arrived. Inside were the printouts, the letter, the watermark, Brooke's email confession. I slid them toward him without a word. He flipped through them slowly, his expression shifting from confusion to shock, then to something that looked like pain. You really think Brooke did this? To you? To me? I don't think, I said quietly. I know. He set the papers down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling like he wanted it to explain everything. Why would she do it? Because Lydia needed to protect her perfect image, I said. And you, my love, you were the leverage. He frowned. You think Lydia told her to write it? I think Lydia knew about it. Maybe not at first. But when the chaos started, she didn't stop it. She let you believe I was the villain, because it made her look like the victim. Mark rubbed his face with both hands. God, I feel so stupid. I reached over, placing my hand on his. No, you're just someone who wanted to love and be loved. You trusted the wrong person. That doesn't make you stupid, Mark. It makes you human. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, when I saw you crying on the live stream, I wanted to call you. But Lydia said it would make things worse. She said you were trying to ruin our wedding. My chest ached. She lied to you, baby. I know, he said, his voice cracking. I just didn't want to see it. He looked up at me then, eyes glassy. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't you fight back sooner? That one hit me deep. I took a breath before answering. Because I raised you to be kind, to believe the best in people. And somewhere along the way, I started believing I had to be the same way, even when people didn't deserve it. He stared at me, then looked down at his coffee. You didn't deserve any of this. For the first time in months, he reached over and hugged me. Not one of those awkward, distant hugs he'd given lately, but a real one. The kind that made time fold in on itself. The boy who used to hide in my arms after nightmares now holding me like he finally saw me again. When we pulled apart, I asked the question that had been burning in my chest since the wedding. What really happened that day, Mark? What did you see before the screen froze? He hesitated, then spoke slowly. Brooke showed up right before the ceremony. She handed the officiant an envelope and said it was from you. Lydia saw it but didn't say anything. Then, when the officiant started reading it, people gasped. Lydia screamed, said you were trying to ruin her life, and then someone threw a glass. It all spiraled so fast. He paused, and when I tried to stop her from leaving, she slapped me. I blinked. She what? He nodded. She said I'd embarrassed her, that our marriage was cursed because of you. He looked down. I guess that was the first crack. I exhaled, a mix of anger and vindication coursing through me. So she finally showed you who she really is. Yeah, he said quietly. She did. We sat there in silence for a while, the truth settling like dust in a room too long closed off. Then he said something that caught me off guard. I don't think this is over, Mom. Lydia's not the kind of person who lets things go. She's been calling me nonstop since your Reddit post. She says you're trying to destroy her business. She's threatening legal action. I couldn't help but smile. Let her try. Mark frowned. Mom, I'm serious. She has money, lawyers, connections. And I have something better, I said, meeting his eyes. The truth. And a whole internet full of people who saw it happen. He let out a breath that sounded like half a laugh, half disbelief. You really are something else. I stood, refilling his coffee. You get that from me. We talked for hours that day about his childhood, about his father leaving, about how we'd both lost and found each other again. There was healing in the conversation, the kind that comes when you finally stop defending lies and start rebuilding truth. But just when I thought peace was settling in, Mark's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face tightening. It's her. Don't answer, I said. He didn't. Instead, he turned the screen toward me. A text from Lydia. Tell your mother to delete everything, or she'll regret it. I felt that cold clarity return. The same one I'd felt the moment I saw my forged signature. Well, I said, setting down my mug. Looks like it's time for phase 2. Mark blinked. Phase 2. I smiled. Oh, honey, you didn't think I was done, did you? That night, after he left, I opened my laptop and started drafting something new. A little deeper, a little sharper. I wasn't going after just Brooke this time. Lydia wanted a war. She just declared it. And here's the thing about me. When I start something, I finish it. But before I keep going with this fight, let me take a second to say this to you. The person still reading this story hours later, probably curled up with your phone, eyes wide. You have no idea how much time, emotion, and memory it takes to relive all of this just to tell it right. So if you're still here, hit that subscribe button or share this story. It's the only kind of justice that keeps the truth alive. Because next time, the gloves are coming off. You can't destroy someone like Lydia by yelling. You destroy her by letting her reflection turn against her, by holding up a mirror so clean she sees her own rot staring back. That's the trick with people who live for appearances. The truth isn't their kryptonite, it's their reflection. After Mark's visit, I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that text she sent him. Tell your mother to delete everything, or she'll regret it. Threats, from the same woman who'd smiled through dinner at my table and called me Mama C like she owned the title. By morning, my plan was ready. I started with what Lydia loved most, her image. She wasn't just some wedding planner's fiancée anymore. After that fiasco, she'd rebranded herself as a relationship empowerment coach, peddling soft-lit videos about forgiveness and feminine power. Her Instagram was a shrine, perfect filters, tearful confessions about toxic in-laws, and hashtags like hashtag healing journey and hashtag boundaries are love. She was milking our pain for likes. So I made sure her followers saw the truth. Step 1. I created a new Reddit thread under the same username, u/Southern Mama Burns Back. This time the title read, "Remember that wedding scandal influencer? Guess who's profiting off it?" I linked screenshots of her posts, timestamped just days after the wedding chaos, where she talked about rising above betrayal. Then, side by side, I showed my proof, the forged letter, the confession from Brooke, the business watermark. No angry rants, just evidence and calm commentary. I let the hypocrisy speak for itself. By noon, the post had 30,000 upvotes. Her followers started flooding her comments. "Wait, are you the Lydia from that wedding story? Girl, this doesn't look like healing. Why is your cousin's name on a forged letter?" She started deleting comments by the hour, blocking people, disabling replies. Classic damage control. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots spread faster than wildfire on a dry Carolina summer day. And then I played my next card, the private group. See, Lydia ran a little online coaching community called the Glow Circle, full of women she charged $200 a month to transform their inner wounds into wealth. I knew because Mark had mentioned her bragging about it one night. It wasn't hard to find her business email from her public site and send a little anonymous tip to a few members. Just a heads up, you might want to Google your coach's name before your next payment clears. Within 48 hours, the Glow Circle imploded. Members started posting in forums, comparing notes, realizing Lydia had lifted entire paragraphs of advice from other self-help influencers. She wasn't just manipulative, she was a thief. Harold called me that evening, laughing so hard I could barely understand him. "You're a menace, Caroline. You just dismantled that woman's empire with an internet connection." I smiled. "I told you, Harold. I'm not the villain in this story. I'm just the editor. But revenge always has a price." Mark showed up 2 days later, tense, tired, holding his phone like it might explode. "Lydia's losing everything," he said. "Her business is tanking. She says she's getting death threats. People are calling her a fraud." "Because she is," I said. "I know, but she's unraveling, Mom. She's saying you won't stop until she's dead." I looked him dead in the eye. "I don't want her dead, Mark. I want her exposed." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's scared. She says she'll sue you for defamation." I chuckled. "Let her. Truth isn't defamation, sweetheart." Mark hesitated. "She wants to meet. Says she'll tell me everything if I agree to talk without you." I could feel my jaw tighten. "Don't. Mom." "No, Mark. She's playing her last card. She's trying to isolate you again. Don't fall for it." He looked torn, eyes darting between me and the floor. I need to hear her side, even if it's a lie. And I knew then he wasn't going to listen. Not yet. So I did what every mother has done at some point. I let him make his mistake. But not without protection. That night, while he was getting ready to meet her, I slipped a small voice recorder into the glove compartment of his car. I told myself it wasn't spying, it was insurance. Because if Lydia wanted to rewrite the story again, this time, I'd have the director's cut. He met her at a cafe downtown, the Honeycomb, one of those overpriced Charleston spots where the lattes cost as much as a dinner. I parked across the street, far enough that she wouldn't see me, close enough that I could watch. Lydia looked perfect, of course, white sundress, gold earrings, the picture of poise. But even from where I sat, I could see her eyes darting, her smile stretched too tight. Mark sat opposite her, arms crossed. She reached across the table, touching his hand. He pulled it back. Good boy. After 20 minutes, she stood abruptly, grabbed her bag, and stormed out. I waited until she disappeared down the street before driving away. Later that night, Mark showed up at my door again, this time pale, shaking, eyes wide. She admitted it, he said. My heart stopped. What? She said Brooke forged the letter, but she didn't stop her. Said she wanted to teach you a lesson for meddling. Then she said, he swallowed hard. She said she knew it would break us apart, but that maybe that's what was needed. I felt every word like a physical blow. That woman, I whispered. She used you as a weapon. He nodded slowly. Yeah, but I'm done being her soldier. For the first time, I saw it, the clarity in his face, the same fierce stillness I'd felt the moment I decided to fight back. Good, I said softly. Because it's time to end this. He frowned. How? I smiled. We let her destroy herself. I pulled the recorder from my pocket, placed it on the table, and pressed play. Lydia's voice poured out, dripping venom, every confession clear as day. Mark's eyes widened. You recorded. I recorded her truth, I said. Now we share it. He didn't stop me this time. We uploaded the audio anonymously to Reddit, right under the original thread. The post title, The Bride Speaks Her Own Words. Within an hour, it was trending again. Every line, every cruel laugh, every manipulative phrase, out there for the world to hear. And this time, there was no denying it. The Queen of Mirrors had finally shattered. As I watched the thread explode that night, I took a slow breath, feeling a kind of peace I hadn't known in months. I wasn't out for blood anymore. I was out for balance. But before I turned off my computer, I caught myself smiling and thought of you, the one reading this right now. These stories don't write themselves, and they sure don't heal overnight. So if you're still here, still following this ride, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button or share this post. Every view helps me turn pain into purpose. Because next chapter, Lydia's going to come knocking. And when she does, she won't find the same Caroline waiting on the porch. It was the third morning after the recording went viral when I heard the knock. Not a timid tap or a neighborly hello, but a sharp, steady pounding, 3 hits, deliberate and cold. I didn't even have to look through the peephole. I knew that rhythm. Lydia had always entered rooms like she owned them. I opened the door and there she was. Her perfect curls were gone, hair pulled back tight, skin pale, eyes red-rimmed from either crying or rage. The polished queen of social media had been replaced by something raw, desperate, dangerous. She didn't ask to come in. She walked past me like the house was still hers to invade. You've ruined me, she hissed, spinning on her heel. Do you have any idea what you've done? I shut the door quietly. I think I have a pretty good idea. Her laugh was jagged. Oh, you think this is justice? You think turning the internet against me makes you a hero? I didn't turn them, I said. You did that all by yourself. She took a step closer, her perfume sharp, cloying. You think you're so clever, don't you? Sitting here, sipping your cheap wine, hiding behind your pity posts and your perfect mother act. I folded my arms. At least I don't need a ring light to look honest. That hit. Her face twisted, the mask slipping for just a second. You don't know what it's like to build something from nothing. To fight for relevance every single day while people like you sit back and judge. Oh, sweetheart, I said softly. I know exactly what that's like. I just didn't trample anyone to do it. She started pacing, her voice rising. You've destroyed everything. My clients dropped me. My cousin won't speak to me. Mark, she choked on his name. He's gone. He won't even answer my calls. He finally saw who you are. She slammed her hand on the table, hard enough to rattle the picture frames. He saw what you made him see. You manipulated him. You made me the monster. No, Lydia, I said, stepping closer, steady, calm. You did that when you forged that letter. When you told him I was poison. When you made me watch my son's wedding like I was a stranger. I didn't make you the monster. You did that all on your own. She glared at me, breathing hard. For a moment, I thought she might hit me. But then something strange happened. The fury faded. Her shoulders dropped. And in its place came something I hadn't expected, fear. Her voice cracked. You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Brooke said it was just to send a message. That it would shake you up. I didn't think it would ruin everything. I tilted my head. You didn't think framing a mother on her son's wedding day would have consequences. Tears welled in her eyes. I just wanted him to choose me. I was tired of competing with you. And there it was, the confession. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't even feel anger anymore. Just an overwhelming, bone-deep sadness. You were never competing, Lydia. You were just the only one who didn't realize you were loved conditionally because of what you could take, not who you were. She shook her head, tears falling freely now. You think you've won, but you haven't. People will forget. They always do. They'll move on to the next scandal and I'll rebuild. Maybe, I said. But Mark won't forget. And I don't need strangers to hate you. I just needed my son to see the truth. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked around the house, eyes landing on the family photos, Mark as a baby, Mark at graduation, all the moments she'd tried to erase. For the first time, she looked small. Why are you so calm? She whispered. Because I already survived the worst day of my life, I said. The day I realized my own son didn't know me anymore. Everything after that is just cleanup. She stood there for a long moment, her mascara streaking, hands trembling. Then she laughed bitterly. You're dangerous, Caroline. You hide it well, but you're ruthless. I smiled faintly. Only when I have to be. She started to leave, then turned at the door. He's never coming back, you know. He'll always blame you for something. Maybe, I said. But at least he'll know it's the truth he's blaming me for. And with that, she was gone. I stood there in the doorway, the silence stretching long after her footsteps faded down the walk. I thought I'd feel victorious, but what I felt was something quieter, relief, maybe even pity. Lydia wasn't my villain anymore. She was just done. That evening, I called Harold and told him everything. He listened in silence, then said, sounds like she confessed. She did, I said. So what now? Now, I said, looking out at the Charleston sunset painting the sky in gold and fire, I move on. But not quietly. Because here's the thing about stories, they don't end when the villain leaves. They end when the truth settles in the bones of everyone who lived it. And mine had just begun to heal. Before I close this chapter, though, if you've ever had to stand toe-to-toe with your own devil and smile through it, you know how much that takes out of a person. So do me a small favor. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, share it forward. It's the only way stories like mine keep breathing after the storm. Because next, the world finds out what Lydia tried to do after she walked out that door. It's funny how silence feels different after a storm. The house that once echoed with my heartbreak now hummed with something calmer, like peace was slowly learning its way around the rooms again. But peace never lasts long when your enemy's pride is still breathing. And Lydia's pride? It was a monster that refused to die quietly. 2 weeks after she showed up on my doorstep, just when the internet seemed to move on to its next scandal, Lydia made her move. It started with a blog post on her newly rebranded website, The Truth Behind the Lies, My Story of Survival. I found it one morning while sipping coffee on my porch, the Charleston air thick with that heavy kind of humidity that makes secrets sweat their way out. The post was long, rambling, emotional, manipulative. She called herself a woman betrayed by those she trusted, claimed the recording had been edited, said Brooke had fabricated evidence to ruin her. She painted herself as the victim of an unstable mother with control issues. That unstable mother was me. For a second, I laughed. It was almost impressive, really. Lydia had turned her own public downfall into content. Her followers, what was left of them, were eating it up, sending messages of support, posting comments like, "We believe you, Queen, and haters can't destroy a woman who speaks her truth." But what she didn't realize was that this time, her truth wasn't the only one people were listening to. See, after the audio of her confession went viral, I'd been flooded with messages. Not just from strangers, but from people who knew her, former friends, ex-colleagues, even a client or two. And they all had the same thing to say. You're not the first one she's done this to. I spent 3 nights reading their stories. Every lie, every manipulation, every trail of destruction she'd left behind. By the 4th night, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I compiled everything, emails, screenshots, testimonials, even voice messages from people she'd ghosted, cheated, or conned. I organized it neatly into a Google Drive folder titled The Lydia Ledger. And when I was done, I wrote my own post. No venom, No name calling, just receipts. I titled it The Woman Who Cried Healing. I opened with her own words, quotes from her blog, where she'd called herself a survivor of digital abuse. Then I let her former clients and partners speak for themselves. Each story timestamped, cross-verified, and linked. I ended the post with one line. Healing isn't about rewriting the truth. It's about finally facing it. Then I hit publish. It didn't take long. Within hours, the hashtag the Lydia Ledger started trending. Her remaining followers turned on her. Former sponsors dropped her. Even Brooke, her own cousin, posted a story saying she was done covering for family lies. Lydia tried to fight back. She went live on Instagram, tears glistening, voice trembling, claiming she was being cyber-bullied. But this time, nobody bought it. The comments were merciless. We heard your confession. Stop playing the victim. You forged a mother's name, and now you're reaping what you sowed. By the next day, her website was gone. Her profiles deleted. She'd vanished from the internet completely, but not from me. A few nights later, Mark showed up again, holding his phone. She called me, he said quietly, from a new number. Said she's leaving the country. Going to start fresh. I nodded slowly. Good. Let her run. He looked torn, like a piece of him still wanted to save her. She said she forgives you. I let out a soft laugh. Of course she does. That's what manipulators do when they lose control. They wrap the blade in forgiveness. He didn't argue. He just nodded, eyes heavy with understanding. I think I finally get it now. I reached out and touched his cheek, like I used to when he was little. You don't have to get all of it, baby. Just enough to know you're free. That night, we sat on the porch together, no words, just the sound of cicadas buzzing and the soft hum of the marsh. For the first time, we were quiet in the same way. Whole. And for me, that was enough. Later, as I sat at my desk writing this, I realized something. Revenge isn't about hurting back. It's about reclaiming your story, taking the pen out of someone else's hand and saying, no, this is how it really happened. I didn't destroy Lydia. She destroyed herself the moment she mistook manipulation for love and lies for legacy. But before I close this chapter, I want to ask something of you. The one sitting there reading this story deep into the night, maybe nursing your own old wounds. Take a moment and hit that subscribe button, share this story, leave a comment. It's not just about clicks, it's about connection. Every time you do, this story reaches someone who might need the courage to face their own Lydia. Because the truth is, there's always one out there. And me, I was finally ready to live without one. A month after Lydia disappeared, the world stopped talking about us. The hashtags faded. The gossip threads went quiet. Even the local Charleston paper that once called our story a digital morality play had moved on to covering city council scandals and hurricane forecasts. Life, as it does, simply went on. But peace doesn't arrive all at once. It tiptoes in. For the first time in a long time, my mornings felt simple again. Coffee steaming in my favorite chipped mug, sunlight spilling through the kitchen window, the soft whir of the ceiling fan. No phone buzzing, no new messages, no fires to put out. Just quiet. I didn't realize how much I'd missed that sound. The sound of nothing. Mark had moved back to Charleston temporarily, renting a small apartment downtown. We met every Sunday for breakfast at a little diner off King Street, the kind with worn booths, strong coffee, and waitresses who remembered your order by heart. The first time we met there, it was awkward. Conversation came in stumbles and silences. But by the third week, it started to feel like old times again. He'd tell me about work, about how he was picking up freelance photography gigs. He even mentioned seeing a therapist. Trying to untangle everything, he said with a sheepish grin. I'm proud of you, I told him and meant it. One Sunday, he pulled out a small photo he'd taken, a reflection of the sunset over the water, perfectly symmetrical. Thought you might like this, he said. I smiled as I looked at it. It's beautiful. Feels like peace. He nodded. That's what I was going for. We didn't talk about Lydia much after that. Not because we were avoiding her, just because she no longer held space in our lives. The fire had burned itself out, and all that was left were the ashes of what she'd tried to control. A few weeks later, I got an email from someone named Rachel. She said she'd read my story online and wanted to thank me. She'd been in a toxic relationship herself. She wrote, with someone who isolated her from her family, who used manipulation disguised as love. Your story, she said, made me realize I'm not crazy. And I left him. I read her words 3 times, tears blurring the screen. For the first time, I realized that what I'd shared hadn't just been revenge. It had been survival turned into warning. Pain turned into purpose. That night, I sat down at my old wooden desk, the same one I'd written my first angry post at months before, and opened a blank document. At the top, I typed, "Letters to the women who stayed too long." I didn't know if it would become a book, a blog, or just something I kept for myself. But I knew one thing. I was done being silent. Done being the woman people pitied. Done being the victim in someone else's narrative. Because I'd learned something in all of this. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did. It's about freeing yourself from the need for them to ever make it right. And I was finally free. A few weeks later, I framed Mark's photo and hung it in the hallway. Every morning, I'd pass by it on my way to the porch, and every morning I'd smile. The reflection of that sunset reminded me of everything we'd survived. The chaos, the heartbreak, the noise, and how we'd finally found calm again. That's the thing about storms. They don't destroy everything. They just reveal what was built to last. And if you've made it this far with me, if you've read every word, every twist, every wound and healing, I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. These stories take days to write, hours to live through, and a lifetime to process. So if you haven't yet, take just 5 seconds to subscribe, comment, or share this. It helps more than you know. Because somewhere out there, another mother is sitting alone in her living room, staring at a Frozen wedding live stream, wondering where it all went wrong. Maybe she'll find this story and realize she isn't crazy or cruel or broken, just human. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not the destruction, not the exposure, just living well after someone tried to write you out of your own life. As the evening light faded over Charleston and the cicadas began to hum, I sat on my porch one last time with a glass of sweet tea, letting the quiet settle around me. The world had moved on, but I finally had too. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not an apology, not closure, not even justice, just peace.